I would probably take an average 1-2 grinder playing his A game over an average 25-50 grinder playing his C game any day.
You're listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. Each week, you'll get to peek inside the greatest minds in the game and discover what makes them successful.
Mental toughness separates those that can't handle the stress.
If you're going to treat it like an amateur, you're probably going to have amateur results.
Here are your hosts, Elliot Rowe and Adrian Talenchik Rousam.
Hello and welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Elliot Rowe. This week, I interviewed Raghav Bansal. He's one of the most successful poker players in India, and he came on to talk about the Indian poker market and the fact that things are booming over there, something that you may not be aware of. So let's just jump into that interview now.
So, Raghav, welcome to the show. For those of you who don't know who Raghav is, he's an Indian professional poker player. He's currently number one in India on Pocket Fives, and for the last couple of years, he's been number two on the GPI for India as well. So, absolutely crushing both online and live. Raghav, welcome to the show.
Yeah, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm good. And, when I say, Indian professional poker player, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who aren't really aware of what's going on in India and with poker at the moment. So do you want to just sort of talk through what's actually happening out there?
Yeah, so I get this a lot actually. Whenever I travel to play live all over the world, people ask me where I'm from and I say India, and they're like, oh, you still stay in India? Because they just assume that, I'm just an Indian guy, born, brought up in the UK or the US or somewhere like that. But the scene over here actually is growing quite a lot since the past few years. And online poker is as well as booming since there's about 3 or 4 pretty good websites in India to play right now. Even the live poker is booming. A lot of celebrities are getting into it. There's 2 or 3 poker leagues which have opened up, out of which one I'm a part of, called the Poker Sports League. There's a lot of buzz around about poker in India, and things are just growing, and PokerStars is coming to India as well in a couple of weeks. So really looking forward to more and more people getting involved in poker in India.
Yeah, it's something where it's quite fun for me to watch because, I'll be talking to someone in America and they'll be talking about the death of poker. And then, 2 hours later, I might have a client in India, and quite clearly we have another poker boom going on there. Yep. And, it's all sort of starting again. And what do you think's stimulating that? Why do you think poker's sort of becoming so popular right now in 2018?
In general, I think India has a habit of being 10 to 20 years behind the West. So I think it's a bit of that, but
right.
But in general, I think I think the urban population in India likes to stay with the trends outside in the West, and I think poker is one of those cooler things that people do now, and so everyone most people have stopped playing 3-card poker, which is more of an Indian traditional gambling game, and now people have moved on to poker, and more people are going outside to study for masters and undergrad, and they learn the game there, and they come back and they teach their friends, and that's how basically everyone started playing more and more poker in India.
And thinking about that, how did you come to find this game?
Same thing. I was studying in the UK, and this friend of mine called Matt, he just taught me the game, and then we started playing £1 sit and goes, and we pretty much played the max I think I played was £10 sit and go in the first year of uni, and that's how I kind of got hooked onto the game. I used to suck back then, but it was a lot of fun. It was really challenging, the fact that there's so much to it.
So it all started with one of your friends trying to hustle you in a £1 sit and go. Hey, you got to thank him. It worked out pretty well. And how did things move forward from there? From going from playing £1 sit and goes in a university in England to playing some of the highest stakes games in the world. Really, some of the bigger tournaments in Macau and things.
It's been a slow journey. When I started playing back in uni, I'm talking about 2006, which is 12 years back, which seems like quite a lot of time. And I think for the first 4 or even 5 years, I'd say, 4 years actually, I was pretty much just a very, very casual player. I just enjoyed playing the game. I have an addictive personality in general. So like, when I start liking something, I'll keep doing that. So for the first 4 years, I think I was still a fish, and like I was definitely a fish actually, and but I still spend a lot of time playing. After that, I came back to India, and I started playing like a little bit here and there online, and then I started playing on the Zynga poker app on Facebook, and slowly I built up like a lot of chips on that. And I didn't know at that time that you could sell. There was like this black market for selling off those chips.
Really?
For real money. Yeah, I had no idea. And this guy just popped up one time I was playing on the highest table possible on Zynga, and this guy pops up and he's like, "Do you want to sell me chips for cash?" I'm like, "Yeah, for sure, man. Like, why not?" And I did, and I deposited that on my like full tilt account, and I basically built everything from there, from that $215 that I got, because like I didn't want to like spend like my own money. Like I didn't even have that much money, to be honest, back then. Like I used to just like take pocket money from my parents. So I built up from there, and like I built up like a bunch of bankrolls, like a lot of times over the next 3 years or 4 years actually. I built up like $50,000, $30,000 bankrolls online, starting from like $200. Like I used to build it up, and then just one week of madness, and I used to just like lose it. Like I used to just like, if I was grinding like $1, $2, I used to just like, if I start winning a little bit, I'll start taking shots at like 5-10, like 2-5, 5-10, and if I lose a couple of binds, instead of dropping back to my normal stakes, I used to just go even higher, like trying to recover that. And this happened.
Hey man, it's like you got a good mindset coach now.
And yeah, I think so. So this kept happening, man. This happened for a long time, and it's really, really painful to grind for like a few months, like from like 1 cent, 2 cent, all the way to like $2, $4, and then just punt it all off like $10, $20 in like 3 or 4 days. This happened a lot of times, and then finally, like I think I got it in my head. Like I spoke to a couple of friends. This friend of mine called Tushar, shout out to him. He really helped me out with this. He told me to just like grind and just try to make like a small amount of money every day, and just keep it like that, and just build it slowly. Like instead of trying to catch up with my friends who had already like moved on like much higher than I was playing. So I think I was in this like mentality where I was trying to recover and try to get to their level, because I thought that I was at least as good as them, and that kept pushing me back. And so I decided to take it like on my own path and just go slow, and just grind myself, and like just build up slowly. And I think with that mindset, I think like I started moving up in stakes slowly, and like I think I've been doing pretty well for the last 4 years.
Man, well done. And in terms of those sort of key moments so far, what's the biggest moment you think in your career?
I think it's that chat I had with that friend Tushar. Like, so he's pretty much the guy I started playing poker with in the beginning. He's the one who introduced me to a live game. I had no idea. Like you asked me in the beginning, I had no idea myself when I came back from the UK that people play poker in India. So he introduced me to a live game. We started playing live, and like after about a couple of years or 3 years of playing live, he told me this thing that, what, Raghav, just focus on making like 10,000 rupees a day, like in your cash game, and do not try to like get to other people's level quickly and stuff like that. You just got to be on your own path, just grind it out. And that made a big difference. Like I think that was the main thing which happened for me in my career in the beginning. But I think recently, in the last couple of years, I think making a final table at the World Series, which was like pretty much the first time the Indian flag has been on the FT. I think that was a big game changer, And then I met Mark Herm after that, who started coaching me, and he told me about you, and he's like, what, before you even start getting coaching from me, you got to get a few sessions from Elliot, because that's going to help you out a lot. Like you really have a lot of mental game leaks, basically. Like you tilt a bunch, you don't play consistently, this and that. So I started working with you, and that's been I think the one thing which has propelled me like to an even higher level, like.
Oh man, thank you. It's very kind. And when you're now playing in those bigger tournaments, how do you feel at the table?
I feel very normal actually. I never get phased by like any of the big pros. Like I've pretty much played like I would say like 80% of the top 100 GPI right now in the world, and I've done really well in those tournaments. I've actually played like 3 high rollers in my life, and I've cashed I've come second in one. I've cashed 3 high rollers in my life out of like 5 or 6, and like I've got pretty good scores. But like I've never felt phased by any of these big guys. I've played my normal game. I've obviously been realistic enough to adjust to the fact that I know that these guys are really good, and I adjust and I become slightly tighter, and I just start taking some spots which probably they don't expect me to take as more of a like not so like sicko kind of player. So I adjust my game, but I never feel phased by anything. Like I feel really good actually. I feel I play better in fact like when I play against these sickos.
Man, that's very, very, very cool. And you mentioned the sports leagues the poker sports leagues in India that are starting up. How does the system of that work, and how are they being publicized?
So
so is it on TV? Or?
Yeah, so Poker Sports League, which is the league which I'm part of. I'm a captain for the Pune Sharks. So that's going to be on TV this year, the second season. And it's actually pretty exciting. There's like 12 teams. Every team has 10 members, including the mentor. And then there's 2 wild cards, which are part of that, where you can get anyone. So I've heard that this year, like people like Martin Jacobson are going to be coming. Like Kevin McPhee is going to be coming. Dylan Nin. Like Alan Lau, who's a really good friend of mine, who's Asia Player of the Year twice now. Like Dongle came for me last year. So some really big names have come here actually, and so it's really good for the growth of poker in India. There's like even the team owners are all like big shots, and they have a lot of reach and brand value attached to them. So it's only going to help poker in India and make it boom even further. So I'm really really excited about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it really sounds like it's taking off in a way that poker really isn't getting the same level of sort of mainstream media support in the US at the moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't go ahead and say that it's getting any mainstream support as yet. To be completely honest, I think it's still very, very, very much in its infancy. But I think it's getting to a point where we could start getting that. And in a country of 1 billion people, like once we start getting even 10% mainstream coverage, like that's gonna be like huge for not just India, but like everyone in the world who plays poker. Like it's like just to add a decent chunk of Indian players to the world market, that's gonna make it like really good, to be honest.
Yeah, 1 billion is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Man, and and as you're seeing that growth, is it something where it's fun for you guys to see the growth? Because it must have been that you had this thing that no one knew about, and you were the poker player, and obviously that's probably starting to change a little bit. Is it any part of you feeling a bit sad about it becoming slightly more mainstream, or is it all good?
I think the fact that I feel like I'm at the top at the moment, I think I don't feel sad at all because I'm just getting more like more people know me, and more people respect me for like what I'm doing and this and that. So I don't feel sad at all. I actually feel like really happy that it's happening because like nowadays, like earlier, I think like 4 years back, if you tell anyone like just like a normal guy like me, like who doesn't play poker, like in Delhi, like if you tell him that you play poker, like they'll be like, okay, that's what you do that for a living, like what do you mean? Whereas nowadays, like if you tell someone that, like they're gonna be like, oh, that's really cool, man, like and they're gonna like be way more accepting of the fact that you play poker for a living. So just that shift in itself has been like great, and that this is only because more and more people are playing, right? And more people are playing professionally, so their friends and family know about the fact that they're playing professionally, so it just reaches out like in a multiplier kind of way.
And that's one of the other things I sort of wanted to cover a little bit with you, because it has come up with some people I've spoken with over there. The sort of the acceptance of the family of being a poker player. How did you deal with that, and what is that like, for the typical Indian poker player who wants to start their career?
Yeah, so this was, I think, one of the biggest challenges which any Indian poker player faces, like just what their parents would think, like about them being a professional poker player, because it's not a small deal, like in a country like India where like traditional values and stuff like that are like kept at a high regard, and the fact that like a lot of families, like they really care about what their family and like their friends and stuff will think about them, and about their son or daughter playing poker. That's a pretty big deal in India. So that's a problem which I've seen like a lot of my poker friends face, and a lot of upcoming players as well. Like, so they actually call me up and like they ask me like like how do we go about it? And like to be honest with you, like I was like really scared to tell my dad especially that I play poker initially. So I didn't, like for like the first like 2 or 3 years, 2 years of me playing professionally, I just like lied to them basically. To be, I used to just say that like, oh, I'm going to a friend's place, and they I think they just kind of like gave up on me, like, because they used to, after like a year, they just stopped even asking like, where you're going, because they just thought like, oh, I'm not doing any work. They used to like tell me like every month like, oh, why don't you get a job, or like, why don't you start working with me, in the family business. And I used to just like not. I used to be a bit of a rebel, right? So like I was kind of scared to tell them, but then one day, just like randomly, like like I was speaking to my father, and like it just felt like the right moment to tell him. I'd like imagined in my head like at least 500 times that I'm telling my dad about the fact that I play poker professionally, and like how he would react, and I was so scared that I would never have the balls to tell him. But this moment just felt right, and I went ahead and I told him, and like he actually really, like, weirdly enough, like he accepted the fact that, yeah, fair enough, this is like there seems to be a lot of skill in this game, even though he'd never played poker in his life. But I think I did a good job of explaining him, and I didn't tell him about live poker in the beginning, because like live poker could be seen as kind of shady, like at the beginning when someone doesn't know about poker at all. So I told him about online poker, and he actually likened it to trading, which was actually a pretty apt comparison.
It's very close. Yeah,
exactly.
very
so
close.
I was actually shocked, and I was almost pissed off at him, that like, why aren't you more pissed off with me? Because like, why have I been hiding this for the last 2 years and feeling guilty about it? Like, so that's I think just saying it in a very like like in a very mathematical kind of way, explaining it to your parents, I think that will help. And I think the biggest factor though is that, like, when I told my dad about it, I had a bunch of cash, like lying with me. Like I'd made a lot of money till then, so like I told him that I have this much money, and he was like, okay, you know what, this is not just a joke, like he's actually doing it properly. Like, it's like you can't tell your parents about poker in India when you have like $5,000, for example, like, or $10,000 with you. They're gonna be like, okay, whatever, you just got lucky, dude. But you like make up like more money, and then tell them, and then they'll be like, okay, fair enough, he's actually making real money out of this, he can like live on this.
And that's something else where what real money is. This in India, when you hit these big scores in high rollers and things, it's actually astronomical money, isn't it, compared to the living wage? So when we hear about $100,000, $200,000 score or something of that level, versus what someone's making on a yearly basis, it's actually quite different than how we view it if we're working in, say, the US or in London.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like massively different, because in general, like, obviously in these countries, people earn way more money, and the average income in India is really low compared to that. But to be completely honest with you, the kind of people that are involved in poker in India, and the kind of like friends I have and everything like that, I think it's not like that crazy big a deal either. Like, because
okay, so at the moment, is it sort of the wealthier people are the ones who are getting into poker in the first place?
I guess for sure. I think that's definitely true. And so like just the general statistics that we see for India, I think that's true for, like, obviously like an overall India perspective, but India doesn't work like that. Like, there's just such a big divide. There's like, between the people, and I kind of sound arrogant, I think, when I'm saying all this right now, but it's just the way it is. So in general, like among my friend circle and like among my family and whatever, it doesn't seem like that crazy of a figure. It is obviously still a big figure, but in general, it's not as big as, like, one would think it should be, because of India,
right?
But still, in terms of poker in India, among the poker players, it is still like the biggest scores that anyone's ever got. So like it's still big in that sense for sure. Yeah.
And then in terms of people then viewing this in terms of, if we're looking for a potential poker boom, if it does get on TV and people start seeing the money that we're talking about, and that they can play on PokerStars when it's available to them and start making a wage, how do you think that will have an impact? Because even if the people that are very wealthy, I'm assuming as this goes out to the billion people in India, X amount see it on TV, that could be pretty exciting television.
Yep, that is the time I'm waiting for, to be honest, because that is the time when we see, like, we have a lot of people in our country, and there's a lot of really, really smart guys out there. And like, there's a lot of really dedicated guys out there, who go to the best universities in India. And these guys are really smart. Like, once these guys try to get into poker, and obviously there's some of these guys are already in poker now, But when it gets a little more mainstream, and people from the top colleges in India, like they start realizing that, wait, hold on, we can make like 10x more money than like we would as in like as an MBA, which would require another like 3 4 5 years of studying and working and getting to that decent wage level. They would get onto this, and like I think then like India, if it goes mainstream, I think India could definitely be in the top like five in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, it could become a powerhouse
Yeah,
in
exactly.
poker, realistically.
Yeah, I think with some mindset, like training and shit, I think, yeah, for sure, because that is, I think, one thing honestly where we might be like one of the worst in the world, to be honest with you. Like just the way we approach, how seriously we approach poker, and just how much we study and stuff like that. I think those levels are pretty low in India right now. There's very few guys out there. I'm sorry for all my friends who are listening, but like there's very few guys out there who are actually taking who are just being serious about poker. Like I think one example is my friend Kunal Patni. He takes it really seriously. Like he shows up on time. He's fresh. He's eaten breakfast. He's worked out, all of that. But there's very few people out there who who take it seriously, and like that's why the results show. Like I mean, apart from like me and a couple of other people, like there's not like anyone who's got like good results in life, like good life scores outside India. It just doesn't happen because we just don't have that winning mentality. Like they don't have that serious, focused energy which you need like to get through these long 10-hour grinds and then come back the next day focused, fresh, and then do this again for 10 hours and then do this again for 10 hours. They just don't see it that seriously at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that's something that's going to change as more websites become available. Basically, as soon as people see the edge you get over your opponents by doing these things, you know what it's like. If you start doing the exercise, if you start studying properly, and your opponents aren't doing those things, it's such an incredible edge, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge, man. Like I anyways think that after a certain point, in any I mean, at least in poker and like most sports as well, I think you can only improve like maybe 10% more or like 15% more or whatever after you get to a level. You know what I mean? In terms of technique and stuff, but in terms of the mindset, there is literally there's no boundaries. Like honestly, you can get like technically, I mean theoretically, you can get to Zen level, right? Like obviously no one gets there, but like the goal should be to try to get as close to it as possible. And there's no limit. Like there's like you can increase your edge in this game by improving your mindset multifold more than than by improving your just your the technical bit of poker after a certain point. Obviously that's the first thing, that you got to be good and solid at poker itself, but after a point I think you can definitely achieve way more gains and way more ROI by focusing more on this stuff, on the mental side of it.
Yeah. I think a big part of it comes down to where you're seeing your weaknesses. So, your technical game has to be good. No one's going to win if they don't know how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you see that your weakness is, I'm not folding a hand when I know I'm beaten, then it doesn't matter how much more technical training you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing something that you know is wrong, you need to be working on your mindset, because you could study another 20 hours. If you already know it's wrong, then it doesn't, it's not going to help. So it ends up being that, that's where the mindset work starts to kick in is very, very valuable. Is once you reach that level of you really know what you're doing, but sometimes you're struggling to do what you should be doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Elliot, because I think one of the biggest problems I've noticed, at least with like my friend, like at least in India, and I'm sure it exists other places in the world as well, but obviously I've spoken to way more Indian players, is the fact that we and I know that I had this problem. Like I used to lie about hands a lot. Like I used to play a hand, and then like someone asked me, "How did you bust?" And I used to just lie about it because I was embarrassed, like that I played some hand really bad. And I think this is a prevalent problem in India. Like like most people still lie about their hands a lot. Like no, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of poker players do. And what happens is I think you just like trick your brain into thinking that you're actually playing okay, because you don't actually go through that period where you feel bad about it. Like your friends are not reassuring the fact that, okay, what, bro, that was bad, this is what you gotta do, or like maybe you could have played like that. And this basically this part which is missing makes it so that you don't get to self reflect and like actually like deeply realize that, okay, you know what, this was bad, and this is what I need to improve on. And uh, if people don't do that, then basically it's going to be a problem. Like, you can get better technically, but if you're not true to yourself and like, like realize what you're doing wrong, you're gonna be like a fish mentally for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's key. Honesty is key when you're playing, and especially when you're trying to. If you're looking for help with a hand as well, you have to be honest about what happened. Otherwise, it's waste of everyone's time, and it causes loads of issues. So, if someone was looking to start poker in India, I mean, what would you say to them? What are the good sites to play on at the moment, or is there anything particularly good or not, or is it better to play cash at the moment or MTTs? So if you're listening to this for the first time, you're in India, you're tempted to start poker, what would it be going to those free money games on Facebook like you started?
No, I think those Facebook games I think they should be dead by now. I'm not sure, but I hope they're dead.
You took all the chips. That was it.
I think there's a lot of like good Indian websites now to start, and they have a lot of like free rolls, and they have a lot of like the bonus codes, and they have a lot of good offers going on basically. So I think Adda 52 is a pretty good site to play on. Then there's PokerBazi, there's the Spartan Poker. These are all sites which like basically these are top 3 sites in India, I would say. And PokerStars is coming soon, so if you want the best experience, I guess just play on PokerStars, because I think I think nothing beats that, obviously. So I think there's a lot of offers to take advantage of, and I would suggest that don't like get in too deep. Like don't play with more than what you're willing to completely lose happily. Like and yeah, to start small. You can. I think probably the better thing to start off with, to be honest, even though I'm a tournament poker player at the moment, I think the better thing to start off with is cash game, because it just gets your fundamentals right, like over time. Obviously, it's not gonna happen initially, but like it's a much better way to make money in poker in general, to be able to support yourself and then think about moving into it professionally in the near future. And and just play tournaments on Sundays and stuff, like when they have like really good tournaments on Indian sites with a lot of value. But I highly recommend not like becoming a tournament professional at the beginning, or taking tournaments too seriously in the beginning, because it's not that easy. There's a lot of different elements to it which you learn over time, and I think cash games in general are just easier to get into, and they're just going to make you more money. So it's definitely the best way to go.
And in terms of the Indian poker community and things, where is that online? Is there anything that people should be checking out, like any really obvious place where I don't know, forums or message boards? Or
there is this Facebook group called IPPA. To be honest with you, I mean that's where all the poker players in India are. It has become a bit of a Comedy Central kind of place recently. But honestly, like if you're new to poker, if you want to reach out to everyone and just get an idea about what's going on and like how to go about things, I think sadly that's your best bet right now to get across to people. So yeah, check that out, and that's I think the best place to go.
Man, okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and for giving us a bit of a story of yourself and of Indian poker, and what the next few years might bring for it. If people want to follow your quest to taking that number 1 spot on the GPI, where can they follow you? Have you got anything on Twitter or anything like that where people can? Like,
I've been wanting to get more active on social media for a while now, but I think I've just follow my page on Facebook, Raghav Bansal Poker, and I think that's the best place to follow me. I'm on Twitter and stuff as well, but I don't really tweet that much at the moment. So I think the best place to follow me is on Facebook.
Okay, man, awesome. Well,
I want to leave. I want to say one thing before I leave.
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the biggest things which I use now, I think to realize that I'm not playing well or whatever, and like this is, I think, a big change that I've used to get better and be more focused, is when you stop listening to your inner voice like when you're at the poker table and like you start going against it a bunch of times, that's when you know you're not playing well. And like I really want that anyone who's listening to this, anyone who's taking the time out to listen to this, to like just remember this. And whenever you're playing on the poker table or online or wherever, and you feel this like this gap between what your brain is telling you to do and like what you're actually doing, just take a step back and like just think about like how to reset it and like just get back into the zone. And I think this tip itself, I think, is worth a lot of money because like it's going to help your ROI a lot.
Yeah, it's huge. If you can understand when, the emotions have got in the way and you're no longer being true to yourself, if you can take control of that, and, even sometimes it's worth even stepping away from the table is sometimes worth more money than playing an extra hand there. So step away, give yourself a minute or two, and then come back. Yeah, you might miss a hand, but at the end of the day, it might also change the way you play for the rest of the session.
Yeah, correct. And I think there's one thing with Daniel Negreanu said that like he just, when something like this happens to him, like he just shuts his eyes for like a minute, and he just like resets his mood. Like he tells his brain pretty much that like, okay, this is how I'm going to be now, and that's it. And like it's a really good like hack basically. And it can cost like you a lot of money if you don't basically do this,
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge tool for people to use. Awesome stuff. Well, man, once again, thank you so much for coming on. I'll be following you. It's been a ton of fun working with you, and we'll catch up for lunch again in Vegas this year, I hope.
Sure, 100%. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, man. I'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.
So great stuff hearing from Raghav. There's just so much going on over there. So it's going to be exciting times for poker in general if we get access to maybe another billion people interested in poker. Hope you all enjoyed the episode. And if you'd like to check out my products or services, go to www.pokermindcoach.com and make sure you download my app. It's a free download. We've updated it recently. So if you haven't checked it out recently, get on there. It's Primed Mind. So check out Primed Mind on the App Store or Google Play. I'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. To get future episodes delivered to you automatically, make sure to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting service. To get any resources mentioned in the episode or to listen to past shows, visit pokermindcoach.com/TMA podcast. Thanks for listening.